Hello to anybody that's watching. So 2 days ago, I decided to start a little challenge for myself. I decided to go to the dollar store and pick up some fly tying materials. It's kind of a challenge to myself to see what I could do, what I could find, and what I could make from it. A couple of things spurred this, some videos on YouTube where people will go and get things to fish with that are cheap and try to catch fish. And another thing was a conversation I had with my buddy John when he was here visiting, where we were talking about fly tying, and he was wondering about the materials and whether you could use inexpensive materials or if they had to be specific. And my idea was that yes, you could get cheaper materials as long as they would function. So my things that I found to use, I'll go ahead and redo this. One is, I'll switch camera angle here. One is some cheap bead chain. Normally I would use the metal bead chain from a ceiling fan. It works well, it's heavy. This is the plastic kind. It still looks like eyes. I found a boa, feather boa, white, to use for feathers. The feathers are not great, but they'll kind of do. I found a needle and thread kit. I've got all the thread here on the table already, so there's none in the bag. I got some nail polish to use to glue down the head. I chose a color because if I wanted to make a color on the fly, I could use it. However, I typically use clear, and I'm going to actually use this clear because the one that I found at the dollar store is not great for tying. It actually took probably 2 hours to dry. It was tacky and the feathers stuck to it, and it was not a very successful fly that I made. Although I think I could still catch some fish with it. It is pretty ugly. And then the last thing that I got was some different multicolored pipe cleaners. So anyway, I'm not going to use a pipe cleaner today, but with my threads, I actually took the thread. I'm going to switch the camera again. I took the thread, I took my blue and my green and mixed them together like you would do a rope, where you twist it one direction and then let it come back on itself and it turns into a rope. It's I think it's called furling, I believe. The idea is to make a fly called a Royal Wulff, which is a blue fly with a little red marking on the body and white feathers. My feathers, my biggest obstacle, and also fly tying with regular sewing thread versus an actual fly tying thread. It's very different and very difficult, or not very difficult, but it's not easy to do. And then also I'm using Walmart hooks. Oh, those are open. I'm glad those didn't fall out over the floor. It would have been good to find in my foot. I'm going to use this middle size though. This is just a regular bait hook. Now typically the fly that I'm going to tie, I'm just trying to make this fly look like that kind of fly. It's not going to function with that kind of fly where it would float when it hits the water. This is a very heavy hook, and also the feathers that would hold it afloat. These feathers are definitely not those kind of feathers. So I've got my bait hook here. I'm squishing down the barbs that are on the back because that will keep it from, it could break my string and give some issues. That's how I know that it's tight. And so now I'm going to start tying. I'm using a black thread as my base thread, and then my furled string to be the replacement for feathers. Again, I'm just using materials that I found at the dollar store to try to emulate a fly that I've tied before as a regular fly tying pattern. So This string is not waxed, which makes it hard to keep it on the hook. So you got to keep it pretty snug. The idea here is just going over the whole hook, covering it from head to toe, or head to butt, or whatever, however you want to look at it. And the feathers that you would normally use to tie this fly would make the body be full, be a fatter body, and make the fish more interested in it whenever they try to eat it. Because I don't have those kind of feathers, I'm going to have to use my thread here to make it kind of double up. One thing that is good about these feathers that come from the boa is that it still makes a good tail. So you just bunch up the feathers before they looked like that. So you bunch them up, you make them about the length of the body or so, put it here, a couple of turns just to hold it on to the hook like that. This is not going to be the prettiest fly in the world. I would probably match this up to the kind of flies that you buy. This is kind of a generic fly that you would find at Walmart. They don't have the best flies, but they can work in a pinch. This is wax from, it's bowstring wax. That's not something I got at the dollar store, but it's definitely something that's going to help this fly stay together. So make a couple more turns on this tail just to knock those feather parts down. I'm going to stop right there. Now I'm going to tie in my furled thread and just lay that over the top. Bind it down a few turns. Work your way towards the front. And what I'm going to do is work it down, cut off this extra piece here. I'm going to work this down to where I want to tie in my red string in a moment. Build up the body a little more. I'm going to put that red string probably about right there. So what I'll do now is I'll wrap this toward the front of the fly, just touching turns so that it builds the body with the color. Again, this is green and blue thread mixed together, twisted together. I'm trying to emulate the color of the fly that I'm tying, which is a Royal Wulff. The thing that makes it royal is this part that I'm about to do here. So again, not having wax on this thread makes it difficult, but go over a couple of more times. Feather fluff. Alright, so now from my fly 2 days ago, I have a little piece of my red thread. I'm actually going to bend this down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to wrap this around my bobbin and thread like this, just to help make it thicker. So I'm going to make a couple of turns with that. Get this other piece out of the way a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go a couple of turns this way. To move forward, the amount of space that I want to cover with the red thread, I'm going to take the red thread, now that I've tied it in, go around just a couple of times. Twist that a little bit so that it stays together. I'm doing this kind of in a hurry because I actually have a doctor's appointment. Go back. I'm going to twist it because it keeps wanting to separate. Okay, and then I'll tie this off. Tie off the red. Trim it. Save that for another fly. Now, I've got this piece here. That's my body. I'm going to tie it and work forward with my thread to where I'm going to tie in my feather in a moment and where I want this body to end. So then I'm going to take this and wrap forward again up to where I want my feather. I'll now tie that off a couple of turns, maybe one more. Usually 2 or 3 turns is enough to hold it. I'm just doing a little bit extra this time because this is thread and not tying thread, and so it doesn't hold as well. Now I've got that wrapped where I want it. I'm done with the body thread. So there's that. Now I'm going to tie in. Now this is going to be the interesting part, because this kind of feather, when you're tying a fly like this, it should be, well, I don't have one handy. Yeah, I do. Should be a feather like this, where you bend it and the barbs stick up. This feather is not that way, but it is one of the better ones that I could find, and I'm hoping that I can bend it and then flare it out and then trim it and get the length I want. So the first thing I need to do is get rid of this fluffy part, and I'll tie in the little stump that's sticking off. Start here. You want to cross the body like this and then grab it with the thread. Again, this is not tying thread, it's not waxed. Okay, and I'll work forward to where I'm going to tie off with the head and leave it there. Now, I have a hackle plier. This is for grabbing the feather on the, I guess you would call that the stalk, and carefully wrapping it. And this is a very webby feather, so it's sticking together a lot, but it's starting to do what I want it to do, kind of. It's definitely just going to barely look like the kind of fly that I'm actually tying. And so now I will go around and tie this off. A couple of turns. Now I can trim this feather off without cutting the rest of it and cutting the thread, I hope. Come on. There we go. I'll come back and fix that in a second. Now, this tying with other materials is really tough when you're used to the real thing. Okay, I'm going to make a few turns here, build up a good head like that. I'll go ahead and do my half hitch. There, one more. And then I'll do my actual knot, which is you go over your finger, back under the head, go behind the other one, and then you trim it. And then you go finger into this loop, grab the other string, pull it through, put it back where it was, go in again, grab the string, pull it through again, and then I like to either pinch this, or I'll do a different way this time, where I just hold the loop with something small and slide it in place. That way I know if anything gets in the knot. And that's going to be enough for me today on the knotted part. Cut that off, and I'm going to paint this real quick with some fingernail polish. Again, the polish that I bought on the dollar challenge, the dollar store challenge, was not great. This is still only a couple of dollars at Target, this clear that I'm using. but it is officially not the one that I bought at the dollar store. So now, front facing, you can see how rough this fly looks. Normally this part of it is very fluffy and very thick, and it makes the fly stay on top of the water. So what I can do is, can't do much for the fluffiness, but I can do something for the length, and I want this to be about the size of the gap of the hook. So I'm going to take this, and with my curved scissors, I'm just going to trim around. This is definitely not the way you do an actual fly, like a legit fly. The feather that you pick makes it this length already. And you don't have to do all this trimming. But that's what I'm doing for my challenge. Normally I tie with regular materials. So, all right, and somewhere I've got a little brush, but, oh, there it is. So I'm going to take my little, this is a brush for cleaning trimmers. I'm going to see if I can fluff this up a little bit. Probably not. So that might be the way that I do it. Yeah, it's not really fluffing. So it is a very rough copy of a Royal Wulff fly. The green and blue thread actually kind of came out pretty cool, because that's pretty much what the fly looks like. Things that are not great, obviously the quality of the tail is not, these should be very stiff and straight out, and this little stumpy one should not be here. The red thread could be further down, closer to the end of the tail. This head came out okay, but it could be a little smaller. And of course these feathers should be a lot more fluffy, and they're definitely not fluffy. Not fluffy like fluffy, but fluffy like very full-bodied. Because when you throw this this is called a dry fly when it's a real one, and when you throw it on the water, it will sit on top of the water like that, like a emerging fly from underwater, or a fly that's landing to lay eggs, and it'll sit just like that, and the fish will come up and eat it. But just to show that you can actually get some stuff from a dollar store, I guarantee you I could still catch fish with this. Perch or sunfish, even possibly a bass. Bass like these kind of wiry hackles like this. They like, it'll still undulate in the water. I could probably move this back and cut these more to the same length, but you can see I got them pretty close to the length of that body. So that's pretty much what I was going for. So again, I was just playing around trying to get something that looks like a Royal Wulff. If I was tying with the real materials and real threads and things and a better hook, this would have turned out really well. So I think it's still fun, still cool, and it's interesting to see what you can do with dollar store materials. I think that is a much better version of a fly than the one that I tied 2 days ago. Pretty rough. Although, again, I think this will catch fish. Anyway, so that is my fly. Hope you enjoyed watching. I don't make YouTube videos or anything, but this is a kind of a fun way to kind of get this out there and see who likes it. I do watch a lot of these kind of videos on YouTube, so it's fun to make them. But hope you enjoy it. Hope you're interested in that. I think my next one might be a legit fly, like a streamer, or maybe I'll tie a Royal Wulff out of the real materials. And, just to do it. So I'll keep doing it, I guess, until either every day or every other day or something, until I have made all the flies that I know how to make. So it's fun. It's an outlet. It's kind of cool. And I've talked to some people that I've talked to some people that were interested in how I tied. So hopefully I didn't cut out too much video there because it just dropped out. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you later. Bye.